The gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Duffy.
Mr. Dellery, would you just walk me through the process and how you decide when to issue subpoenas for fraudulent activity? And if you could do it quickly, that'd be wonderful.
I'm sorry, how we decide on the... certainly, I think it's based on standard law enforcement approaches. So looking at information that we have obtained in one investigation that suggests that another party is involved in law enforcement activity.
You investigate, you get complaints, and you make a determination that there's potentially fraudulent activity, right?
And then continue, to seek more information if that makes sense.
And then when you have enough information, you send a subpoena to the banks, correct?
Yes, when we have reason to believe that there is fraudulent activity.
So when you have reason to believe, you send a subpoena out. Right. And is it pretty fair to say, Mr. Osterman, when these banks receive a subpoena from DOJ that they cease to do business with the third-party payers or with the payday lenders? Is that fair to say?
I don't know that is fair to say. I mean, I can't speak for the banks, but the subpoena is asking for documents. If the bank is operating lawfully and the third-party payment processor is acting lawfully, they have nothing to be concerned about.
Okay, great.
So why they wouldn't continue to do business.
Subpoenas are brought. You continue your investigation. You've referenced, 3 cases that you've brought suit against banks, right? 4 Oaks, one of them?
4 Oaks, yes, is one of them.
So I'm interested not in, because you keep talking about, fraud in the banking system, fraudulent merchants. Are you bringing cases at the DOJ against the fraudsters? Are you bringing cases against the third-party payers? You're bringing cases against the payday lenders?
So I think...
No, that's my... Are you bringing cases? Answer my question. Are you bringing cases against the third-party payers and the payday lenders?
We are investigating third-party...
No, so you haven't brought cases against them. That's my point. Listen, you have come in here and you've said, listen, we have fraudsters. They've committed fraud. Who has determined fraud? You're an attorney at the DOJ. Has there been due process? Has there been a hearing? Has there been an adjudication of fraud? No. You've come in here and said, we've got fraudsters across the country that we're protecting America from. There's no judicial determination of fraud. It's that we have a bureaucrat in the DOJ that says, I think it's fraud. And so, you know what? I'm going to shut down a legitimate business. Am I wrong?
Yes, Congressman.
Tell me.
I disagree with that summary of what we're doing, and I think
so. The question is, how many dispositions have you had from a court that these third-party payers or a payday lender has committed fraud? How many?
So a number.
How many?
I believe that
The answer is 0, isn't it?
I think no. In connection with the Wachovia case, the third-party processor was also.
You don't even know. This is you prepared how long for this hearing, and you can't tell me how many have been adjudicated fraudulent. And you've come in and you've told us with a straight face and a straight eye, there is fraud, and I'm protecting the American people. Listen, I'm going to put up the list of high-risk merchants. So you can go after payday lenders, which, listen, there's no love for payday lenders, but the system that you're using is of concern. You can go after payday lenders. You might say, well, listen, high-risk merchants, they include firearm dealers, they include ammo manufacturers, right? You can go after all of them to protect the banks. And so can Mr. Osterman at the FDIC. I think I was listening, and we heard that highly regulated industries that do business across state lines or have different regulations in different states. Another one that could be on this list, if administrations change, could Planned Parenthood and could the abortion issue be on that list? I'm not saying it should, but who's to say that they couldn't fit in to a bureaucratic scheme to shut down legitimate business? I look at Colorado. You have the DOJ bending over backwards to make rules work so drug dealers selling marijuana can actually bank. But here on the list, you have tobacco sales as high-risk merchants. Our concern is we have a federal government that's out of control, and we have bureaucrats who think they can get a swift idea and impose the heavy-handed government on legitimate businesses that have had no adjudication of fraud, but you come in here and you say fraudulent, 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 and you haven't proved it at all. I yield back.
Gentleman from Washington, Mr. Hack, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to also thank the gentleman from Wisconsin for the seamless segue to my line of inquiry. Mr. Osterman, I had intended to ask you about Operation Choke Point, but then last night with my 12-hour-old edition of USA Today, I opened it up, and there on page 1 was an article that was entitled, "Pots of Marijuana Cash Cause Security Concerns." Among other things indicated in this article, a security expert saying about marijuana businesses in states where it's been legalized, either for medical use or for adult recreational use. Some people walk in with shoeboxes full of cash. Some people walk in with locked briefcases. We've had people bringing in buckets. The vast cash flows are a clear come-on for criminals. And finally, you're effectively creating a magnet for crime. I've been very concerned about this public safety issue for some time. That's why I was pleased last August when the Department of Justice did, in fact, in the now famous Cole Memorandum, set forth its conditions for standing down in prosecutorial action. Remind you that the two top criteria are preventing marijuana from getting into the hands of children and preventing cash from getting into the hands of gangs. And was followed in February of this year, a wonderful Valentine's Day, by guidance from the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, in which they indicated the basis on which they would not seek follow-up action. Both of these effectively create, I guess, kind of a safe harbor if the terms and conditions are followed. In the spirit of those terms and conditions, I think, although there are many, with the Department of Justice, it's those 8 terms and conditions, and with FinCEN, it gets into the suspicious activity reports and what reporting requirements are required. But the essence of them, really, is public safety. The essence of them, and I'm going to repeat myself because I think it's so very important, is to keep marijuana out of the hands of children and keep cash out of the hands of the gangs and the cartels. Mr. Osterman, you stopped short in your follow-up and implementation of this. And I guess my question really is, what, if anything, can you say today to give confidence to banks and credit unions that they can provide banking services to legitimate, legally constituted legitimate marijuana businesses without the threat that your agency will penalize them, threaten their deposit insurance or whatever, or force them to close their accounts, keeping in mind that this is first and foremost a public safety issue?
Well, Congressman, the Cole Memorandum, which you reference, as well as the FinCEN guidance, I think is very helpful. And we have actually told our examiners to, when they're examining institutions, to ensure that those institutions are in compliance with those guidelines. And we have actually provided a letter to Washington State banking authorities to that effect. And I believe we may be in the process of doing that with Colorado as well.
It's the very letter that I'm referring to, Mr. Osterman, that does not go as far as the Department of Justice nor FinCEN's guidance in terms of basically saying, if you completely respect these terms and conditions according to DOJ and according to FinCEN, and again, for the third or the fourth time, the essence of which is public safety, keeping marijuana out of the hands of children and cash out of the hands of gangs and criminals, then you will not pursue regulatory action. Your letter stops short of that. What can you say today, or what follow-up correspondence might you be willing to provide that is consistent with the Department of Justice's language and form of safe harbor, as well as FinCEN's?
Well, I think, again, FinCEN, these are criminal activities. FinCEN sets the standard, and they've spoken. And I think we've gone, as far as I am aware, that we can go. If there were any kind of guidance that would be issued, it would have to be a interagency type activity through FFIEC. And I mean, I don't understand why that doesn't provide.
So are you saying that if they follow FinCEN and DOJ, you will not make a regulatory sanction?
We're telling our to ensure that they're doing that. If they are, we're not going
I'd appreciate it if you would have them communicate that more clearly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your indulgence.
The gentleman's time has expired, and while it's bipartisanship, it's two sides of the same leaf, perhaps. We'll now go to Mr. Barr of Kentucky for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, I don't know of anyone who would find fault with financial regulators who, in good faith, are attempting to stop consumer fraud. I think what the American people are troubled by, what members of Congress are concerned about here today, is the prospect of powerful federal agencies working with the Department of Justice to pressure banks to terminate relationships with legitimate businesses. You can understand that. You can understand why there would be concern. And in particular, lawful and legitimate businesses that may be politically unpopular with this administration's policies. Let me give you an example of where a Kentucky resident raised this concern with me. And in Kentucky, we have particular sensitivity with the administration's what we consider a very political attack on a very legitimate business, the coal industry. We've lost 7,000 coal mining jobs in eastern Kentucky over the last several years because of this administration's regulatory assault against this very legitimate business that is employing thousands of people in our communities. We have these communities littered with unemployed coal miners, and their families are suffering as a result of administration policy. And so we get an email from a Kentucky resident in our congressional office, and this is what it says. Our family company has been in the business of leasing our land to coal producers for decades. Today, I returned a call from client services at our bank in Lexington, Kentucky. They asked if we lease land to coal producers that operate surface mines. They said they are receiving pressure from bank regulators and will no longer do business with us if we have surface mines on our property. After some thought, I called back again and asked if we would be receiving a letter from the bank stating the situation in writing. I was told that yes, we would receive a letter, but it would not talk about pressure from regulators. Further, she said it would state to the effect that it is in the best interest of the bank not to do business with our company due to the perception and its effect on their business. So verbally, the bank is telling the customer, the regulators are pressuring us to not do business with your family any longer. But in writing, they won't do that. So my question to you all, as regulators and as the Department of Justice, are you aware of any guidance, directives, or efforts by your agencies to stop financial institutions from transacting business with coal operators or land holding companies that lease their land to coal producers? And I'll just have you all go down the line.
No, Congressman.
No, Congressman.
No, Congressman.
No, sir.
Okay, and so have bank regulators at any time in the last 2 years ever had a policy of pressuring banks to reevaluate their relationship with a coal operator, a coal production company, or a surface mining operation that you're aware of? Have you ever been in meetings where the topic of coal production has ever come up in the context of Operation Choke Point?
No, Congressman.
No.
Okay, and so I'm glad to hear that, because I want to get a commitment from each of you that you will assure me that your agency will not in the future discourage either explicitly or implicitly any financial institution from doing business with coal mining activities, whether surface or deep mine. Can you give me that commitment?
Yes, Congressman, as I've explained our policy, it would have nothing to do with the situation that you're describing.
So, Congressman, I agree with the notion that you're trying to bring across about dealing with an industry. I can't say that there isn't going to be some an individual supplier that may not have financial difficulties where a bank may choose not to be involved with them because of that. So, putting aside the kind of credit quality and other kinds of normal banking criteria, I agree with you.
I think Mr. Alvarez has stated it appropriately. I mean, we do have underwriting standards that the banks would be looking at and safety and soundness standards, but given the context that you're raising this, I agree with you.
And I only have 10 seconds left. I just want to make sure that when you're looking at fraudulent activity, you're not defining a risky business